Hello, my podcasting family. I am so excited to be back on the podcast this week. Episode 176. 176. On the episode, we have a very special guest. Look at this. We have guests this summer. I'm so stoked. Anyways, our guest today is Mr. David Daley, and he is sitting here in the space right next to me. If you want to see him physically, be sure to jump over to our YouTube channel and check it out there because it'll be there in a couple of weeks too. David, oh my goodness, tell them who you are, what you do, and why you're doing it.
All right, Larry. Well, thanks for having me on the podcast. I'm really excited to be here with you. So I am a financial planner, and I own my own firm, and I can talk a little bit later about the different kinds of financial services practices. And I started my firm at the end of last year. So I didn't grow up in financial services, and I'm not somebody that did it straight out of college or anything like that. So my father is a tile setter.
Okay.
So that's what I grew up doing.
Yes.
So swinging hammers,
Yeah.
remodeling showers.
Yes.
A lot of the residential construction. By the time I was 15, I was climbing on roofs, pressure washing roofs, doing repairs.
Wow.
Never did any hot. I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
Those guys are animals.
Yes.
And so I did that into my 20s, and I was one of the people where it took me a while to get a lot of direction on what I really wanted to be doing.
Yeah.
And into my 20s is when I got into the metal industry. So that was my first warehouse job, and that was more of a family-owned business feeling.
Yeah.
And I was in metal for 7 or 8 years. The company that I started with was eventually acquired by a subsidiary of Reliance Steel and Aluminum, which is a very, very large company. And by the time I left that business, I was in production planning. I was managing, maybe it was a couple 100,000 pounds of metal a day, how it was going to be cut, what jobs it was going to go for. And it was around COVID when it was actually my wife who inspired me to do what I really should have been doing for years already, which is helping people with personal finance. And so I went back to college, got a 4-year degree in about 2 years. I did that because you need to have a bachelor's if you want to pursue your CFP designation,
Okay.
which is on the roadmap for me.
Right.
And so I worked for a few different firms. I have been very lucky in all of my careers and everywhere that I've worked to have the great pleasure of working with fantastic people and fantastic managers and people who would actually teach and show and facilitate growth. Yeah. Not everybody gets so lucky. So the quality of my experience I felt was very good everywhere that I've been. But one of the driving factors for me to stop working for somebody else and start my own practice was some of the rules around who you're allowed to work with, how much you have to charge, and what the nature of somebody else's business is. Where I grew up and the people that I see have a great need for financial planning, that might not fit into the typical framework of what that client avatar might look like for a lot of people.
Right. So I love, so a couple of things we have in common, right? And I love this. Thank you for sharing this. What an amazing wife. That must mean that he is very impactful in his personal relationship about money for your wife to say, you need to go get a financial, do this, right? That must have had a very positive impact where so many struggle with that in relationships.
That is a great point. we don't struggle too much to talk about finances in our house,
Mm-hmm.
but historically and even today, finance is a topic that most families stay away from and don't have open conversations and open communication. And it's not just talking about money, because plenty of people go and they'll say, well, did you see what Apple stock did today?
Yeah.
Or did you see what this thing did today?
Yes.
That's not a meaningful conversation around money. That has nothing to do with how we feel or
I
what.
feel shamed right now. I'm kidding.
Yeah. Or what we're trying to achieve. Like,
Yes.
so and that's a big part of what I consider to be real financial planning. And it I guess it's somewhat of a boilerplate answer,
Yeah.
but my goal is to help people align their financial decisions with things that are actually important to them.
Yes.
And that's why financial advice is its own specific thing. It's not selling products. It's not
Right.
it's very specific.
I love that. I would add to it too as well. My husband was the one who inspired me. I was in my 30s when I'm 50 now, and my husband said to me, "You're so great at sales. Would you just go get your real estate license and go help people find homes?" And I was like, yeah, I've always wanted to do it. I just didn't do it.
Had you talked about that with him before, that you
I had never mentioned it to him. He didn't know I wanted to do it.
Okay.
He just knew I was great at sales and knew that I enjoyed it. And he was like, you need to go sell something. What he said is, you need to go sell something bigger because you're really good at it. He's like, you should go sell some houses. And I was like, yeah, at 18, I wanted to do it. I was discouraged by my family, said it wasn't a safe thing for a woman to do. And so I was like, okay, I won't do it. And then when I was 30, I stepped into it. And I've been doing it successfully for the last 20 years. Not easily successfully, though.
Right.
Because as you know, right, owning a business and growing a business, we were talking about this offline. There's so much more to that. Not only do we have to service the client, but then we have to do all the other stuff to market the business forward.
Yes.
Right. So I love how you mentioned that. And
there's one other part that a friend of mine in Corona talks about when he's speaking about business owners. Business owners are people that know what it feels like to sign both sides of the check.
Yeah.
So it is a unique experience.
Gosh, I hadn't thought about it from that perspective, but you are correct. And I mean, I love what you say also, as you're saying, I didn't want to work for anyone else, and I wanted to start building my own business, working for myself and being the CEO of my business and my life. And I think that's what you're empowering everyone to do when you take over your finances and you become the CEO of your finances and you enlist the appropriate help. Man.
Right. So, and I kind of describe it as, my job is actually not to be a leader for my clients.
Yeah.
It's to be a guide.
Yeah.
Because we want people to make informed decisions. One of the things that you see people do all the time, and it goes back to not having those open conversations and just how much noise there is out there, is what do most people do if they start getting overwhelmed with something attached to finances? What too many people do is nothing.
Yes.
And ignore it and push it off to the wayside. And people may be very good at 2 or 3 areas and just not even think about the other 2, and then try and address something that we should have been thinking about for maybe decades when it's a year or 2 away.
Yes, I would definitely see that, being in the real estate industry and working with families day in and day out, and seeing some families how they struggle and they lose their home. I mean, me coming into the business when the market was crashing, that was just my entire world. I remember like the first year in my business, and the first one of the first few houses that I was showing here in San Dimas, California, I went down the hallway and I heard the little girl in her bedroom and she's crying and screaming and the house is dark and she's like, don't take our house. And they were going
Oh,
through foreclosure, because I stepped into this business in the foreclosure market and so many families going through all those financial hardships. And it broke my heart to see that when I first started. And now, as I walk through this next chapter of our economy,
mhm,
and I see glimpses of people struggling, glimpses of be careful, talk with someone, get help,
right,
right? And that I feel as if that is what we are here for. And I love that you say, I'm a guide,
right.
right? Because I look and think about this, and I even said it to my boxing coach this morning when I was boxing. I
Mhm,
said to him, I said, if I could have one person in my life, it would be a financial coach. And yet I rebel against it because I don't want anyone to tell me what I have to do with my money.
right,
And so I love how you say a guide,
right.
because you're making a recommendation, you're encouraging them.
You know, and the idea is, a lot of what I'm doing a lot of the time is continued education.
Yeah.
I have to stay knowledgeable in my space and in so many different types of products and everything. But I stay a little bit away from the super long-term projections, actually, because those are great, and you have to have an idea that is part of the work, but you need objective measures to make better decisions today. Now, the amount of liquidity that you might need in your life is going to be different than what your neighbor might need.
Right.
You have different jobs. Maybe you're getting ready to buy your next piece of real estate and they're not, or they just bought one. But you need objective measures to make informed, positive decisions today towards what I call your financial purpose. So if you have a real goal, what's really important to you out there, that financial purpose is just a belief that acts as a gravitational force for your decision making to help guide you in the right general direction that you actually want to be going in. I have a little bit of a numbers game for you.
Okay, go.
Okay.
Go.
So, and anybody listening,
Here we go.
and anybody listening, you can participate in this. I think it's just a great thought exercise. And so you don't need to answer, but just think about the question.
I'm a very interactive person, though. I'll want to answer.
So, if you were able to take the last 10 years of your credit card statements, bank statements, all the things that you bought and things like that, and you were able to put it in a time capsule and have somebody open it in 100 years, what would they be able to learn about you from your money story? What story would it tell them?
Oh, that I like stuff.
So it's a great way to frame
Yeah.
thinking backwards about the decisions that we're making.
Yeah.
Now, the second part of that question is, what decisions are we going to make in the next 10 years?
Right. I love that you say that, because one of my agents and I were just talking about that. I'm one of those people that doesn't have to have like a certain amount in the bank to feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
They say there's most women like, oh, you need to have a certain amount and they feel safe, whatever that number is for each individual person. Mm-hmm. I know there's like a good number for what you should have and blah, blah, blah. I get that, right? But I'm one of those people that's very comfortable with going to zero and then going, oh boy, come on, get on it, Lori. You're going to be a mess if you don't get on it.
Yeah.
Right? I'm one of those people.
And then you get very, very motivated.
I do.
Kind of forced motivation.
But my husband is not one of those people. So it causes some challenges, right? Amongst our relationship, because he's like, why did you do that to us again? And I'm like, excuse me, we're in this together, But I did the other day, like, I mentioned when you were out here doing the conference that you did for us, I started investing in stocks, and I've just started playing with stocks, and I'm having fun. He's got great information about that. Helped me reframe the way I look at stocks too. And with that said, I thought, I would love to have that someday my kid screws up fund and be able to say, yes, I can help you. Yes, I can help you. And if Lori continues to take it to zero every single time, then how do I help that day when my kids do the same thing I did and they need a little bit of help?
Well, you might want a what if fund, right? I have some young accumulators that I work with.
Yes.
They're people that are working. Maybe they're not sold on what exactly they want to spend on. They're saving for retirement, and then they're also saving. So we just call it an opportunity fund.
Yeah. I like that name too. That's a good name.
Yeah. You have to be positioned to take advantage of opportunities. Yeah. And I talk to people. I was talking to somebody that might become a client, but there's somebody that they say that they're serious about wanting to buy a home. Mm-hmm. Say, okay, so what steps are you taking today?
Oh yeah.
And there just weren't as many steps as I may have liked to see.
Yeah.
And some of the decision-making process, like, well, what if we frame it a little bit differently and think about you saving towards that house today? What is it going to cost you? I don't want to see people get into homes and be house broke.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors that people do some silly, and I'm sure you see it all the time. Yeah. If you have somebody that's pre-qualified,
oh yeah,
and they pull up in the new Mercedes, yeah. It's like, what are we doing here? This does not align to our values.
Well, I think that's the biggest challenge is that people, we just had the conversation, and I was talking with a woman who wants to see one of my properties. And I just told you, like, I'm confirming, can she actually purchase the property? Look, it's going to be $1,600 a month for this and another $1,100 a month for this. And so you've got a total of $2,700 going out every month. Is that doable with the budget of what you have coming in? And by the way, do you have any car loans? And do you have any student loan debt? Right. And do you have, I feel like at times I am helping people to determine that in the real estate industry too. The one thing that I've seen is it's never too soon to talk to a financial advisor. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And that's kind of how I designed my firm.
Yeah.
And there's other firms that do this also. But traditionally, you might see that an advisor has, you have to have $250,000 or $1 million of investable assets right. to have a conversation. There's a lot more people that need help and a little bit of guidance to get there.
Yeah.
Because when you start early, you can plan towards it. Maybe you don't sign up for the $900 car payment when a $500 car payment is appropriate, but you need something to get the kids to school reliably. So it's the framework around that decision making. So I would agree. It's never too early to at least have a conversation. Even so, part of my process is I'll generally have three meetings with somebody, mm-hmm. 2 or 3 meetings before we're even actually doing business together. First, I want to know what do you think? What do you feel about money? Who are you? If you're going to work with somebody for a long period of time, it's important that you get along, right? The second meeting is talking about, your financial vital signs and knowing where basically have a conversation. What do you own? What do you owe? What do we think about this? Mm-hmm. And then I'll give people a 1-page plan. Here's your plan. Here's some things to think about. If you want to continue working together, then we can do that.
Yeah.
So
I don't like the rules you just put on me.
Too many rules?
It's okay. I understand. Continue. What else do we have to do?
Yeah. Well, and so with those financial vital signs and looking at the numbers, it's funny that you say that because it's actually designed kind of exactly for
Yes.
how you're feeling about it.
Yeah.
Because traditionally, it's like if you say, okay, can I afford to buy a home in the next 5 years? Can I afford to buy this car or build this pool in my backyard?
Yes.
It's like, okay, well, let me see 2 years of tax returns, 2 years of brokerage statements, DNA of your oldest child, your social security numbers, and everything. All of that in order to try and come up with kind of a good enough answer, right? So we don't need that. We can get a general idea and keep moving in the right direction.
Right.
So it's less. I want to do it in a less invasive way.
Yeah. I can definitely tell. I was on your website. I was checking it out and I saw that you had like a little link for you to go in there and just start the process of like walking down the path, right?
Right.
So how many people from your experience so far that you've seen that are like they successfully meet with you and then start moving it forward, and the like they're so grateful, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I did this. what what story would you share with someone to say this is why you really should do it?
I the ones that I've had engage in the process love it, right? I had one person, and I just want to be careful talking about clients or anything.
Of course.
Or anything.
They're not real people.
Right. Yes. But hypothetically.
Yes.
I have somebody who's a business owner, and all the money felt like it was spent all the time.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden,
that's how all businesses are, aren't they?
Having that guide and that third party, the person whose job it is to have open conversations with you, is a powerful thing.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, the emergency fund is getting built, the debt is being paid down.
Yeah.
And there's a relief there.
Yeah.
And we didn't get into positions or situations overnight, and we're not going to get out of them overnight.
Yeah.
When I'm helping people or guiding people in making financial decisions, I also believe in choosing ways that maintain flexibility.
Yeah.
I think that's a very important thing. I don't like things being locked in too often, because life does happen. Yeah. So we have to be aware of the risks, but you also have to be aware of what is the risk of not taking action.
Right.
So I don't have to date. I don't have a client that has not had a tangible financial benefit to working with me, because sometimes it is going to be the decisions you don't make that are going to have a massive effect. But so far, we've been able to find ways, whether it's through a tax benefit based on accounts that we're using or things like that.
Yeah, I was reading on your website. I loved it. You were sharing, or I'm sorry, your blog. You shared forward with me about the 1031 exchange story, right?
Yes, heartbreaking.
And the fact that, I mean, we've had so many people who you and I could share mutual stories about people who are like, man, if the family would have only known, if the family would have only connected with a professional in that area, like this is how you can help prevent this stuff. And that's why you do want to have those conversations, right? That's why you do want to have those people in your life as in professionals, the financial advisor, the real estate agent and or consultant or realtor, whatever you want to call it, the loan, the lender, right? All of these people who have that experience to draw from so that they can lead you in a direction. I always feel bad about saying this, but I did it after reading your story, right? Because they'll say to me, well, Lori, how do I fill out this tax document? And I always feel bad because I'm like, I'm not your CPA. I can't advise you on that. And I shouldn't feel bad because their CPA is the one they need to talk
Correct.
with that document, because that other valued professional sees other aspects of the business that I wouldn't necessarily see.
And if you're, yes, I always bring this up. It's one of my favorite books from when I was a kid. It's got to be 100 years old now, called The Richest Man in Babylon.
Oh yeah, great book.
Yeah, great book. So if you want to know about shields, go to the shield maker.
Yeah.
You want to know about taxes, talk to your tax professional.
Yeah.
Don't go to your water cooler and pick your next hot stock.
Yeah.
So, and again,
but I was just at a backyard party and bought a great stock that hasn't took off like he told me.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I will run down the street. But, so something I appreciate is, you're saying these things and you're having an emotional reaction to what you see going on in people's lives.
Yeah.
So the professionals that you work with should be those that put your best interest first.
Yes.
100%. And I try not to work with professionals that don't behave that way.
Right.
So if you're having trouble with somebody, you can't get a tax answer.
Yeah.
No, we've never heard of filing as an S corp or distributions or safe harbor in a retirement plan. Ask one of your trusted professionals for referrals.
Yeah.
And you can hear an idea around the water cooler. I would just be very wary taking action from that kind of information.
Yeah, so this is the one thing. I had a buddy of mine. I love talking money, and I could do this all day long. And I have limited knowledge. I don't proclaim to be anything super guru on money, right? I just have my real world experience and I just move it forward. And I just, as mentioned, I just started investing in dividend stocks because I discovered them. You shared some stories about that. And I was like, oh, that's a good point. Okay. I appreciate that perspective. And another buddy of mine also shared his perspective on his stock experience, which he was like, Lori, I was like you. I bought great stocks that I thought were great, and I just held them like real estate. Like we think like realtors, just hold, right? We think of like the long-term realtor and you just hold, he goes, and then one day, if you're not paying attention, the company goes bankrupt. And then all of a sudden, that money's gone.
Yeah.
And that didn't become real to me until he shared that with me. And I thought, oh, that is right.
Right.
Like there's nothing you can do about that. And so I share that with you to say, talking with a financial advisor is going to help you avoid that one day, because I think a true professional like yourself is going to keep your clients abreast of the things that they need to know to move their financial goals forward.
We're doing our best to navigate appropriately. The amount of risk that individual investors really take in their own portfolio sometimes is, kind of astounding.
I'm a risky investor.
Yeah.
My husband, not so much.
Yeah. It's good to be diversified. And I have one more.
Even in your relationship.
I have a stock story for you from when I was a kid. And I was never one of the best students. But my dad had me in Kumon, which is
my sons did it. Yes.
A math and reading program.
Yes.
So I was, I had no problems in math.
Yeah.
So when I got to the warehouse, I could do all the algebra and everything, quadratic equations, and I could read a tape measure. So it's a great place to start. So as I was getting older, my dad needed to kind of bribe me a little bit to keep going. One of the things we would do is we'd stop by the donut shop.
Yes.
And I don't know why I remember this so well, but my dad was having a conversation with, I think it was a stranger or just somebody he was familiar with in the donut shop, and they were talking about stocks. And I just remember this other person saying, you don't need to buy a bunch of different things. You just need to buy General Electric because General Electric is diversified in everything.
Oh, okay.
Okay, which was very true. I mean, light bulbs, aviation, everything. Well, wouldn't you know it, not so many years ago, they had a not so great experience. So that story is just to say, I don't care what one company it is, that is not diversification.
Yes, I would agree with you. And that is why you need to meet with a financial advisor. Schedule that appointment, get a hold of you where if they wanted to just sit down and have a conversation with you and just kind of explore the idea of what it looks like to have a financial advisor, what that experience is like, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, so it really just starts with an open conversation. My email is david@daileyfp.com. My last name is Daley. And my website is daileyfp.com. My contact information should be there. And my phone number, it's 951-223-5803. So I want to be easy to get a hold of. Even if it's not a great fit, we can still have a great conversation.
I think I learned so much for you in just the couple of conversations we've shared together. And I've really enjoyed them because you're just really easy to chat with and you talk like me. So
I appreciate
that. That makes life easy. And I remind you guys over and over again to choose to be in business with people who have a heart of a teacher. And I truly believe that that's how you want to help your clients in moving forward in their financial freedom. Is there one thing you want to leave with everyone at this moment?
I guess the only thing I would say to leave people with is don't be afraid to have the conversation with people you trust. Have open communication.
Especially when it comes to money.
Finances is a big one.
People don't want to talk about it. And it's the one thing you should be talking about.
We want to make sure that we're making good decisions financially so that we don't have to worry about things financially.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Thank you, David. That was beautiful. I love that. We will see you guys all next week. Oh, and episode 125. You should check that one out. It's super cool.